Hello everyone, this is Fantasy-esque and welcome back to the Vampire Amazon Challenge in The Sims 4. We are following the reign of Queen Darling Cloudy Snarl, who has recently begun to show concern over the faulty education of her daughters. And the lady suffering the brunt of these failures is none other than Shannon Brightpaw, a weight that is compounding on her desperation to produce a baby girl and bring honor to her bloodline. Her fate is sealed in the current Queen's court, and even with the marks against her, she knows she must find a way to emerge victorious. The time has come for Shannon to have her baby, and I am very excited. It is currently 8 a.m. on Monday. Now, as we are going into this birth, we are going to find out whether or not the breeding season is finally over, or whether it will continue for one more pregnancy. So she's getting a few gifts over here. It's nice to know that the father of her child, Evie, has basically come running to witness the birth of his child. But let's not waste any time and have this baby. I'm dying to know. I think she's dying to know. This is a huge chance for her to gain influence right now, especially because the queen doesn't seem to be too pleased with the way Shannon has been raising her little girls. Now she's placed her trust in Vladislav, so we'll see how that goes. But guys, I did remember this time around to actually roll to see if she would die from childbirth. Lady Shannon right now has a 1% chance of dying from childbirth, and she rolled a 14, so she is going to be safe in this birth. So okay, I have like my names ready. Let's see. What is she going to have? Everyone is looking at her with anticipation at this point. Let's see, Shannon. Let's see. Have you succeeded? Oh, she has! Guys, this is the end of the breeding season. We got our 5th girl. Okay, Shannon is going to be so happy. But this is going to be Dame, let's see, Vampyre. Dame Vampyre Brightpaw, welcome to the family, and only one baby, the one baby girl that we have. Okay, very nice. So guys, that pretty much ends it for the breeding season. I was, mentally prepping to make another breeder so that we could get the queen, ready for the next breeding. But no, this is it, guys. The breeding season is officially over. This means that the vampires are basically heading into a new phase of the queen's reign, because now everyone's going to be focused on raising the baby girls that we have into immortals. Basically, Queen Darling is going to step down from the throne, so she is going to pass on the crown to Zara once Vampyre over here becomes an immortal. So that's the timeline that we have with the ladies, which is kind of a huge responsibility. So once Vampyre has her immortal birthday, the queen is going to see the end of her reign. She's going to step down from the throne. She's going to pass it on to Crown Princess Zara. So up until that point, everyone's going to be focused on basically court politics, raising the youngsters and court politics. Now this is a huge deal for Shannon because she has just gained 1 influence from the birth of her daughter. And I think she is starting off with 0 lifetime influence, and then she has 1 bonus influence from being a lady. Now she has an extra influence point from her daughter being born, so she has a total of 2, which puts her on par with Lilith and... Oh, I have to check with Akira. I think Akira has 3 influence points right now. Lilith has 2, and now Shannon has 2 as well. I'm gonna have to check up on that, but that's exciting. But okay, Vampyre is gonna be moved to the female faculty, and then we'll settle in and see what exactly everyone gets up to, maybe see how they feel following the birth of this new baby. It is currently Monday at 3 p.m. and our ladies have had a bit of a hunting break, so everyone is feeling pretty decent right now. Something I forgot to talk about when we were in the birth chamber is the fact that when Shannon was getting ready to give birth, the seating placements that we had, obviously the queen had one of the seats inside, and then Akira had the other seat, and that was the first time Akira had kind of sat in on a birth within this, inner sanctum of sorts. And that's because out of the two counselors, Akira had the closer relationship with the queen, so the queen chose her to be privy to this special moment. And then Lilith was sitting outside with Caleb. And I just thought, in the aftermath of that whole thing, how surreal it must have been for Akira, who had spent pretty much her entire life in court, sitting outside and wishing that she was always in there, that she had kind of a place of privilege in here. But it was always, Miko and then Billy who had those places of privilege. Finally, when she gets admitted to it, there's none of the allure that it once had, because the ladies who she was attached to, they are no longer here. So I don't think this would have been as meaningful for Akira as much as it would have in the past. So anyways, I thought that was quite fascinating. Also, I did go ahead and take a look at my spreadsheets just to see a few numbers and stuff, and I think with Akira, she does have 3 influence. Shannon and Lilith now have 2. Caleb has 1. The queen actually has 7 influence points, I think. She has 1 from winning the tournament. She has 3 from the 3 daughters she has, and then she gets a +3 because she's a queen, so she has a total of 7. If something like a judgment does happen, the queen's word is going to have a lot of weight. And I was kind of just thinking how curious it is that so far we have had so many deaths, but none of it has come from a judgment, which when I started, I had assumed that a lot of the deaths were going to come from the judgments. But no, that we haven't had a single death from any judgments. It has all been from various other things: sunlight, fire, scheming, murder. It's been a bunch of other things that have happened in the castle. Also, in terms of the children we've had, so I think we basically finished our breeding season in 6 pregnancies. We had 6 pregnancies, we had 7 children, 2 boys, and how many girls? 5 girls. We had 2 boys and 5 girls. So how interesting is that? We literally only had Prince Zoro and Lord Yorick as the males who were born into this next generation, and then we had a whole lot of girls. So that's very, very curious to me. Very, very curious. But let's go ahead and get through some of the whims for our ladies. Now Caleb wants to discuss fine cuisine. Let's see who she has the closest relationship with. So apparently she has bad compatibility with Lady Akira, but she has good compatibility with the Queen and Lilith. Okay. She has a 15 with Akira, a 21 with the Queen, a 37 with Shannon, and a 12 with Lilith. Now, she did reject some of Shannon's advances in the previous episode because she thought that Shannon was using her as a political tool, and I don't think is about that life at all. But I think she still feels comfortable around Shannon and values her as a friend, but Caleb probably feels as though she needs to draw some lines from time to time about when and where Shannon can kind of display that friendship. And I do really adore the fact that Caleb is kind of, this really, I think, attentive figure to the youngsters whenever they come to the main court. The other thing with the birth of Vampyre, I did a count in my head of who the next court is going to consist of. And everything has kind of perfectly worked out. I know initially I was a little bit worried about, if the queen has kind of more chances to breed than the ladies, then what is that going to mean for our numbers if we don't have enough ladies to move into the next court? Because we only had 2 nobles born into this generation, plus the crown princess, that's 3. And obviously Nydia and Nimue, they're going to play a big part in the current court under their mother as they kind of grow up. But once their sister comes into power, they're going to join the luxury class, and they're not going to have any participation in court life, right, in politics. So I was worried about the numbers and whether or not we were going to have enough to form a new court, but actually we have the perfect number of ladies, because the next court under Zara is going to consist of Zara, Lilith, Caleb, Vladislav, Zuleika, and Vampyre. So right now, if all of those ladies survive into the next generation, that is what our court is going to consist of, those ladies. So it's definitely going to be fascinating to see how everyone's relationships pans out. And this is assuming, of course, that Crown Princess Zara survives into, like, adulthood. This is assuming that. We're assuming all of the little girls are going to survive and the ladies are going to survive to that point. Now, with the way things have gone, whether it's from Judgment, whether it's from Sunlight, whether it's from scheming, I mean, Zara is Crown Princess, but one of her sisters could scheme to have either Zara killed or her, exiled. You never know what could happen to Zara. So even though right now, according to the count in my head, the next court is going to consist of these ladies, we don't actually know what's going to happen until the very end. And I think so far we've experienced how quickly things can turn around. So let's see. Caleb, did you speak? Shannon was here. I think Shannon was here. So I feel like she should have spoken to her. I'm going to consider that done because I do think Shannon came up and she was talking to Shannon. So I'll consider this done. Let's move on to Lady Lilith, who wants to play the piano, but I kind of interpret that as her playing the organ. So why don't we come upstairs and let's just plunk for inspiration. We'll just go ahead and do that. Lilith, it seems as though, I don't know who it was, she's challenging, I don't know if Lilith is challenging her or if Shannon was the one challenging Lilith. I'm unsure, but I could kind of see Shannon being the one to try and rub it in Lilith's face that she has a success that Lilith won't have. And I think this has kind of drawn lines even more so because beforehand, when Shannon was pregnant, it was speculation that Shannon was going to be part of the old court and Lilith would be part of the new court. But now it's become like a done deal. Everyone knows where they belong now. So Lilith and Caleb, along with Vladislav, I suppose, they have to try and kind of navigate the current court under Queen Darling, but also know that they have a special role because they're going to be serving under, two queens. They're going to move into Zara, which is probably where they're going to find more success in life. Also, one of you lovelies did make an interesting point, I think, again, it was Icicle Moon, who said that when Zara does come into power, given the way she's going right now and how spoiled she is, some of these ladies, like Lilith and Caleb, might start drawing conclusions or comparisons between how Darling was, how Zara is, and that could cause some drama and strife in the long term, especially if Zara doesn't like what her ladies has to say about her, or if those comparisons are not really favorable. But I'll leave it to it, but I'm gonna consider the piano played. Now Shannon wants to weed a plant. I think this is her trying to, we don't have anything to weed. We did have some weeds, which is why I saved that, but apparently we don't. The next thing she wants to do is rile up a sim. So even though she's been trying to kind of handle her emotions, and she does have a daughter now, so that's kind of a huge success. I still think there are moments when Lilith still kind of aggravates Shannon because even more now she believes that she kind of deserves to be one of the counselors alongside Akira, not Lilith. Like, Lilith hasn't done anything. She's not even going to be part of this court. Like, this is not her last court. She's not going to retire from this, service to the queen. She's going to serve under Zara. Shannon believes that Lilith's loyalties are split and she needs to kind of reveal them to the queen somehow. Let's take a look. Who does she have the lowest relationship with? She's got a 19 with Queen Darling, a 32 with Lilith. She has a 29 with Akira, and she has a 37 with Caleb. Guys, that, I think, is a little dangerous, because this means that Shannon is going to go rile up the queen. I don't think anyone's had the guts to do this. I don't think so. But I think this is Shannon in the light of having a girl, which has made her really confident. It's given her a boost, right, in her influence. She is now going to the queen to complain about Lilith. She's being all nice and chummy with Lilith to her face, but behind Lilith's back, she is going to Queen Darling, and she is basically going to make her case that the queen has no idea what's going on in a court, that people are divided, that there are those who are loyal to her, like Shannon, because, you know, her future is pretty much tied to the queen's reign, whereas you have someone like Lilith, who is gonna, like, her time's gonna come, not now, it's gonna come under the next court, so she's not necessarily gonna have the best interests of the queen at heart. She's not gonna be focused on being a good counselor. Like, why does she even get the chance of being counselor when her head is not gonna be in it? She's gonna be thinking about chasing the crown princess's tail. So that's what Shannon is arguing with the queen about. And I definitely think this was not a good move on her part to be lecturing the queen this way, but I think it comes from the confidence that she has having a daughter. So we're gonna complete this. Now, the place in which she decided to do that was obviously a very dangerous place. We were surrounded by all these children, so all the children of age were pretty much here to listen to that, those accusations. And then Lilith was here, so was Akira, and now I think the queen is probably talking to, she's talking to Lilith and reassuring her that what Shannon has to say is in no way going to affect the queen's view of Lilith, because Shannon has failed her in ways that Lilith hasn't. And I kind of love the fact that Caleb, like, as soon as Shannon walked off, Caleb went after her when all the other ladies stayed behind. And I kind of like the idea that she actually went to check up on Shannon. So she witnessed that outburst too, but she went to check up on Shannon. Okay, well, things are getting spicy. Lady Akira, meanwhile, wants to chat with Arun, and I think Arun is Nydia's daughter. So, and I think this is not necessarily to do with Nydia. To be honest, I feel like when we were talking about the birth chamber and how things used to be before, the fact that, you know, the place that Akira was sitting in for many of the births was Miko's spot, I think that would have kind of reminded Akira of Miko's son, Yorick. And I think that since Arun is one of the breeders who's like raising Yorick, I feel like Akira probably wants to ask him how Yorick is doing, because she was remembering like Yorick's mother. So let's gossip. Let's discuss neighborhood changes. Yeah, she's basically just asking how Yorick is. You know, how is he growing up? Is he okay? Is everything provided for him? Which I'm sure it is. But that's what she's doing. And I think Akira feels a little bit guilty about the fact that she has not checked up on Yorick since, you know, Miko's death. She hasn't made that effort. But being in the birth chamber kind of reminded her of that. Queen Darling, meanwhile, wants to do something romantic. And it seems as though Yorick has aged up. So he is going to be a child. I'm going to have to give him a makeover. And the timing of that was perfect, with Akira kind of checking in on him and asking how he is. Which also means he is going to join this group that the queen has for the court children, and he's going to be visiting us in the castle, so Akira will probably arrange to, you know, start seeing him more, which I like. But the queenie, let's see, who does she have the closest relationship with within her household? So she has a 21 with Caleb. Apparently she has bad compatibility with Akira, and she has good compatibility with Caleb. She has a 61 with Akira, a 13 with Shannon, and a 23 with Lilith. So she is going to do something romantic with Akira. And I think a lot of this does stem from something we talked about beforehand, Let's ask her a risque question. I think this stems from what we said in a previous episode about the queen maybe trying to find pieces of Billy in Akira. So that, I think, was positive. Now, obviously, between the two of them, they recognize that they do kind of seek comfort from each other in that way. Obviously, this hasn't morphed into something wholly romantic and wholly on their own unique, but right now, the lines between them sometimes tends to blur because they are seeking comfort from each other. And what's happening here? Did I just see Zara shove Zuleika? I hope that was a playful thing, but I noticed that, guys. Zuleika laughed it off, but I noticed that. And ooh, look, Anaya. Anaya's over here just casually ghosting around. Okay. Well, I am gonna go off, guys, and give Yorick a makeover. And then have him kind of join the group over here. But I'm excited to see how he looks. I'm excited. Lady Miko's son, Lord Yorick, has aged up into a child, so we are taking a look at him in Cass. He is cheerful and a whiz kid, which brings an interesting light to the way the boys are raised in the male faculty. Seemingly, they appear to have a balanced upbringing compared to the coddling received by the princesses. In Yorick's case, I imagine he has a lot of pride over his mother and the fact that she was a counselor. Knowing that he's going to be a companion to the court ladies when he's older, he probably wants to be someone intelligent that can understand their struggles and be engaging. In terms of appearance, he definitely has a lot of Miko in him. I actually love how he's pretty much the opposite of Prince Zoro, given that they are the only two males we had this generation. So there'll be some diversity with the genes passed down. I was actually thinking about how I said females born in the future will inherit influence from their royal or noble fathers, and I'm actually considering extending this to all of the males in a female's lineage. So the further down the generations we go, the more influence a female will be born with based on how many royal or noble males they have in their bloodline. Because if we really think about it, for example with Lord Yorick, the influence he passes isn't because he's a lord, it's because his Lady Miko's son, and males are a way to tie one's bloodline to other female connections. Plus, it makes sense that having a long history of good breeding stock from royal and noble forefathers makes a female more influential at birth. But with that said and done, I'm going to leave off here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.